the stress in our world and the anxiety. In just a few months ago, the World Health Organization reported a worldwide rise in anxiety and depression. Stress can keep us frozen and can keep us from seeing clearly. Neuroscientists say that, stress shuts down our higher brain centers. We can't think creatively or clearly. Recognize when we're feeling stressed. Be mindful and just say to ourselves, oh, anxious, stressed, fearful. Interestingly, what happens when we speak what we feel out loud or even to ourselves silently, it changes our brain's concentration from the amygdala, the brain's alarm center, which puts us into stress, and takes our attention to the verbal centers in the left hemisphere. So just verbalizing what we feel cuts the stress reaction.
Welcome to Linda's Corner, where we bring more hope, healing, and happiness to the world. My name is Linda Bjork, and today we're going to be talking about the antidote for stress. I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Diane Dreher. Diane is a best-selling author, positive psychology researcher, and university professor whose work has been featured in USA Today, TV talk shows, radio, podcasts, magazines, and more. You can reach Dr. Diane at her website, dianedreher.com, and I'll include that link in the show notes. Welcome, Dr. Diane. I'm so glad that you could join with me today.
Oh, I'm delighted to be here, Linda.
Thank you. And we are living in a time where we are in desperate need for more hope, more peace, more resilience. And I just wanted to thank you for the work that you're doing to help the world be a better place.
Well, thank you. And back at you. Same thing. We all need to affirm hope because together we can make a big difference and bring more light to the world.
Yes. And your work on hope is just internationally known. Can you help us understand what we need to know about hope?
Okay. Well, hope is not just wishing things were better. It is taking active steps, one small step at a time to make things better. And my colleague Dave Feldman at Santa Clara University and I did this little experiment a number of years ago with students on campus, and we taught them about hope. We gave them the hope test, to gauge their hope, and then did this little intervention, which I'll tell you about. And after that, they had a significant increase in their hope. So what did we ask them to do? We asked them to, first of all, and we all need to do this, to center down, to be present. It's very hard to center down and be present with all the stuff that is coming at us. What one friend of mine calls weapons of mass distraction from every place, right, everywhere. So to just be present. And then we ask the students to write down one goal that they'd like to achieve in 6 months. Could be personal, could be professional, could be anything. Just, something to actually commit to some specific action. Because the stress in our world and the anxiety, in just a few months ago, the World Health Organization reported a worldwide rise in anxiety and depression. As I don't need to remind us all that we've got a lot of stress coming at us. But when we can focus not on what we don't want, but what we do want, it makes a big difference. So write down a goal. And then we ask our students, our participants, to come up with 3 steps to reach that goal. Hope involves goals, pathways, and agency. So the steps are the pathways. 3 steps, maybe it takes more, but we can begin with 3 steps. As my study of the Tao Te Ching reminds us, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And so does the journey to hope. So think about one thing we could do. And then, which a lot of people forget, think of something a roadblock that could come up that would keep us from taking that step. And then think of something we could do, an alternative step that we could take instead. And we need to think of that in advance, because when we get all excited and want to take our first step to hope and run and, find ourselves facing a big roadblock, a lot of people just give up. But if we've got a backup plan, okay. I live in Northern California, and there are a number of highways up here. One of them is 101 that goes from where I live in this Silicon Valley to San Francisco. So locally, I ask people, if you want to go to San Francisco, that's your goal, take 101. What if it's blocked? What do you give up, turn around and go home? Or do you take the other freeway, 280 north, and get on that path? So think of something you could do instead. And for each of the 3 steps, think of a roadblock and an alternative. Great. That's goals and pathways. Then we need to think of agency or motivation. Psychologists call it agency. What keeps us motivated? And we need to practice our sense and develop our sense of agency just as we would develop our muscles by working out in a gym. What we do regularly makes us stronger. So we could think about a time when we did something in our past that we were successful at, and tell ourselves, you did that then, you can do this now. Give ourselves positive reinforcement when things work out. Say, yeah. Connect with a friend. What really helps with my sense of agency is to share my goals with friends. And together we reinforce each other and we celebrate our wins together. That makes a big difference. Another way of connecting with agency is to just keep ourselves healthy. Get enough good food, exercise, sleep, so that we stay energized and on top of our game. So Dave and I did this research. We published it in a refereed journal, and it's been cited all over the world in over 500 studies, because this simple approach really works. But first, before we begin setting the goal and, taking those steps, pathways, and the developing our agency, we need now to address our stress, because stress can keep us frozen and can keep us from seeing clearly. Neuroscientists say that, stress shuts down our higher brain centers. We can't think creatively or clearly. All we can do are 3 things: fight, flight, or freeze. So stress is adaptive. When we're walking across the street, we can jump out of the way of the speeding car, can save our lives. That's flight, If we find ourselves in a situation of dangerous conflict, we can fight or we can freeze. And this helped us when we were, hunter-gatherers in the jungles and living like that. But most of our problems and most of the stuff that comes at us on the news cannot be solved by fight, flight, or freeze. Someone disagrees with us, we see that person as an enemy and immediately want to fight that person. That doesn't really lead to any kind of sense of community or cooperative problem solving. Flight, we can't run away from our problems. In fact, a lot of people are so fearful now just to go out and to do anything. They're in a state of continual anxiety, which is terrible. Or freeze, to feel helpless and hopeless and unable to take action. So if stress does that to us, chronic stress does that to us, then we need to recognize when we're feeling stressed. Be mindful and just say to ourselves, oh, anxious, stressed, fearful. And interestingly, what happens when we speak what we feel out loud or even to ourselves silently, it changes our brain's concentration from the amygdala, the brain's alarm center, which puts us into stress, and takes our attention to the verbal centers, Wernicke's and Broca's areas in the left hemisphere. So just verbalizing what we feel cuts the stress reaction. In addition, we can breathe, and we all do that anyway, but to take 3 deep mindful breaths makes a big difference. And I learned from Dr. Jim Doty, who was a neurosurgeon at Stanford, that he would take 3 deep mindful breaths in the midst of complex brain surgery to center down and to be able to save a patient's life in various times. So if those 3 deep mindful breaths can help a person in complex brain surgery, should also be able to help us deal with our own personal stresses. So to notice when we feel stressed and to cut that stress reaction, and then to be able to set those goals, to take those steps, and to develop a sense of agency.
Wow, this has been amazing. Talk about putting just so much incredible information in such a beautiful, tiny package. This is a message that needs to be shared everywhere. Now, I'm going to go back just a little bit because this is worth repeating. Your talk and your experiment about hope. Wow. You took something that many people think as an idea, almost a wishful thinking, something that is maybe even detrimental because it's not real. And you've turned it into something that is empowering. This is about action. This is about paying attention to what do I have? What do I want? And what can I do to get what I want? And all of a sudden, instead of it feeling like it's just an impossibility, it puts it within my reach. And it gives me small, simple action steps, something that I can do, which really does increase hope, as your study showed. Wow, so amazing. Having a goal, we need to know what it is we want. Having a pathway. And I loved how when you described the pathway, you kept it into simple steps. Let's just do 3. And then with those steps, let's include reality. Reality includes roadblocks. That's just the way it is. But that doesn't mean we need to give up hope. I loved your road analogy. We all have an alternate route, a way to get from point A to point B. And the same is true for what we want. And the third one, the agency, I would love a little bit more clarification on that one because I wasn't entirely sure I understood the concept completely. Would you mind kind of helping me just really get that one?
Of course, agency is motivation, it's energy, it's that power that moves us forward toward our goals. We feel like I can do this. And sometimes we need help in order to do this. When I was in grad school, I was a first-generation college student, and I'd graduated from the University of California, Riverside in June. And at the end of August, beginning of September, I moved to LA to go to UCLA to attend the PhD program. And all the other people there at orientation already had master's degrees. Some of them had been teaching at the college level for years. And a couple of months before, I'd just been an undergraduate with nobody in my family who had gone to college. So I thought, I'm going to flunk out of UCLA. This is not good. And we had a midterm in our first class, one of the classes we were taking together. And I thought, okay, what can I do? I don't really want to flunk out. So I thought of it. My goal was to actually stay in school and get my degree. So what step I could take? I thought, I will invite all my smart classmates to my apartment for a pizza and a study session, and I will pick their brains. And guess what? They came, and we all shared our ideas, and it was wonderful because no one of us knew all the answers, knew everything, but together we pooled our resources. We developed energy together. We became, actually, not only did we excel on the midterm, but we became a supportive group of friends who helped support each other emotionally during grad school. So my step there, having friends, having people I could share with, increased my motivation, increased my sense of agency. I felt that I was no longer alone dealing with the problems. So I think, especially now, when so much isolation is happening, our former Surgeon General, a couple of years ago said we had an epidemic of isolation, loneliness in this country, which was hazardous to our emotional and physical health. Yes, we need each other. One way to increase agency is to connect with friends. Okay. Another way is to tell yourself, to be a good friend to yourself. And when the inner critic visits and tells you you can't do this, you've never done it before, you're going to flunk out of UCLA, whatever, you say, okay, what can I do? And push away that negativity with a positive, hey, I succeeded back then doing this. I can do this now. So tell yourself, be a cheerleader for yourself. Replace those negative, powerless thoughts with a sense of empowerment, and talk to friends and give each other moral support. So that's a way to build agency. Another way is to just keep ourselves healthy. When people don't get enough sleep and don't eat enough protein and don't exercise and just sit around all day, they don't feel very hopeful.
That's absolutely true.
One way to increase our agency is to go out and take a walk in nature, which has been shown to relieve depression.
Isn't that fantastic? Okay, so it's starting to become a little more clear to me. And perhaps another way to word this concept is basically, I am taking responsibility for me. I am going to look for ways that I can act rather than be acted upon. I am in charge of me. So what can I do so that I keep my power? And things like you've described your health. You've talked about having that, making connections, that I don't have to wait for somebody to invite me to a study group. I can order pizza and invite people to my apartment and have a study group, so that I'm claiming my power. I am in charge of me. Okay, okay. Oh, I love it. So that is absolutely critical for everything. I mean, it's step 3, but it's also required for step 1 and step 2 in the first place. I can see how this creates a pattern. Love it. Okay, so hope. This is empowering. This is about taking control of my own life and accepting responsibility, and then doing something about it because I can. I see a lot of learned helplessness, powerlessness, and this is an antidote for that. And talk about a win-win. I feel better and I'm able to do more. I love it. Okay, wow. All right. And then you talked about stress. Let's talk about that some more. I loved how, when you were describing the stress problem that we have as a society and as individuals, you gave me some very simple action steps. It wasn't a generic, we should reduce stress in our lives. And people hear that and think, yes, how? And you gave 2 simple, brilliant things. The first one was to verbalize it, which literally takes changes your brain where you're thinking from that stress center into your verbal center. And that is quite simple. To, instead of just feeling stress, to be able to say, wow, I am feeling stressed, all of a sudden helps to reduce the stress. I can do that. I can do that. I can verbalize that. Hopefully, I have a friend, someone I can use as a sounding board. And then the second specific action step that you mentioned was 3 deep, mindful breaths, which can even be done in an operating room, which means I can also do it in whatever circumstance I'm in. So thank you. Thank you for making it concrete, and thank you for making it simple, and thank you for making it accessible. I can do this. People can do this. We can do something about our stress. And isn't that empowering?
Absolutely. We have the power. One of my great heroes of all time is Viktor Frankl, who is a Holocaust survivor and, a psychiatrist. And he said in his book that the last of the human freedoms, no matter what happens in our lives, and a lot happened to him, let me tell you, in Auschwitz, the last of the human freedoms is to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. We have the power of choice. We can choose to acknowledge and release our stress. We can choose to look away from what we don't want, from all the negativity, all the negativity on the news that keeps coming at us and makes us feel powerless. We can choose to look at what we do want. We can band together. My neighbors and I had a food drive when the SNAP benefits were cut off. And every one of us put a bag of groceries outside our front door. And another neighbor came and collected them all. And not only did we help feed our neighbors who were hungry, but we helped feed our sense of hope, because we realized that we can make a difference, and together we could make a difference. We could choose what we do want instead of what we don't want. So thanks to Viktor Frankl for that reminder. It's our power of choice, and we always have that power.
Wow, absolutely. And that goes back to the word choice you used in your step of agency. It's a word that is not, I don't think, frequently used. And it sometimes you can say it and it just zooms right past. But to stop and think about it, as you mentioned in Viktor Frankl's amazing book, Man's Search for Meaning, that is the power that we have that can't be taken away from us from an outside source. But we can give it up ourselves by feeling that hopelessness, by feeling that powerlessness, by looking around at the world and saying, look at all these things that I can't do anything about. I'm helpless. I'm powerless. I'm nothing. Or we can take that small step. I can gather some food. If someone needs food, what can I do about it? I may not be able to solve everything, but I can solve something. That is huge. And that gives me my power back. What a beautiful thing. What a great example. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, thank you. And again, I think our culture makes us look outside ourselves to find ourselves. And that doesn't work. We have all these advertisers coming at us telling us, we're inadequate unless we buy their product, whatever their product is. Okay.
Exactly.
And, we can't even watch television without being bombarded by not only bad news, but by advertisers, again, looking outside ourselves. And actually, no, we have that power within us to make that choice, to put our attention on what we do want, and to take small steps to make a difference. I believe that Jane Goodall once said, each one of us makes a difference. We just have to decide what kind of difference we want to make.
Ooh, isn't that interesting? And that puts up the idea that even when we think we're helpless, even if we think we're hopeless, we are doing something. Are we adding to the helplessness? Are we adding to the hopelessness? Are we adding to the anger? Are we adding to the disconnect by not being intentional?
Absolutely. Another psychologist, Barbara Fredrickson, has studied positive emotions. What a wonderful career she has there. But she's noticed that just a small, what she calls micro moments of connectivity, waving at a neighbor, saying hi to somebody, exchanging a kind word with the clerk at the grocery store, makes both people feel better. It relieves their stress, reduces inflammation, activates their immune system in that much time. Our energies are contagious. Hopelessness and fear and anxiety are contagious, and hope and, positivity, that's contagious too. So that when my neighbors and I had this food drive, we all felt better. It fed our spirits as well as feeding the people who needed the food.
Wow, what a thought. Those micro moments of connection. And that goes back to your earlier thought where we are all making a difference. What kind of a difference do we want to make in those brief interactions? Am I adding to the hopelessness, or am I adding to freedom and peace and power? And I loved how you said that in a snap, you can have such amazing benefits. Will you repeat those again? One was immune system. What were the others?
It reduces inflammation. A lot of people, when they're chronically stressed, have chronic inflammation, which messes up their, immune system. Okay. It activates their immune system. So relieves stress, reduces inflammation, activates our immune system. It makes us happier and healthier in an instant, that connection.
Wow. And it's fascinating because we all want a quick fix. I mean, that's why we want to just take a pill and have whatever problem just disappear. And here you're saying that this is instant, but it's also incremental, because in that moment, it might improve where I'm at, but it didn't solve all my problems, which is my little dream. I would love everything to just disappear. And yet the fix really is instant. It's a series, a continuum of instant small steps. And once again, that feels quite doable.
Yeah. And what's interesting is it doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost anything to relieve our stress by verbalizing it or by taking 3 deep breaths. It doesn't cost any money to wave at a neighbor. And Fredrickson has also found that there's a ripple effect that happens when somebody, has this micro moment of connectivity. It increases. It makes everybody feel better. And the person who was greeted then ends up greeting someone else. And so we can spread positivity through our neighborhoods, through our communities, and it all begins with us.
Wow, it begins with me. That makes me powerful. It makes it feel like I am making a difference. And that is amazing in a world where we feel so powerless. To reclaim our power is as simple as waving to our neighbor, to saying hello, calling someone by name, asking how they're doing, seeing them, hearing them, smiling at them. That is doable. We have power. What a beautiful message.
And it works. It's amazing. Have you ever noticed? Well, the other day I was driving and a car paused and let me merge. And the driver waved at me and I waved back. And it made me feel really good. And then when I came to an intersection, guess what I did? I paused and let somebody merge. So it improves our driving too, apparently.
Yeah, we could all use some of that. The roads that you talked about earlier, we can do this path 101, we can take another one, but on every path, it sure is helpful when we have kind people around us who are considerate. It just makes such a difference. Oh my gosh. I would have to say this has been mind-blowing. So many golden nuggets, so many. Is there anything else that you want to make sure that we cover before we close today?
I would just like to encourage people to recognize that we all have the power to make a difference. And if you look at all the problems we have, we can see, these problems on the news as a menu of possibilities. And we can't do everything, but we can choose one area to set a goal in and say, I'm going to help my neighbors, get food, or I'm going to make a difference and, contact my senator and, say, why don't you do this? I have this idea. We have a menu of possibilities where we can make a positive difference instead of looking at what we don't want and letting the status quo make us feel helpless and hopeless. What do you want? What do we all want? And take that first step, set that goal, get some steps, and develop your sense of agency, because we all have the power to make a difference.
Wow. Thank you so much for this message, and thank you for sharing it today.
Thank you. And thank you for being there, Linda. Thank you for sharing your beautiful, positive energies and your light.
In closing, I'd like to share a quote by the Dalai Lama. He said, "Do not let the behavior of others destroy your inner peace." Today, I invite our listeners to claim their own power by choosing inner peace. See you next time on Linda's Corner. Thanks for tuning in to Linda's Corner podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with your friends to help us inspire even more listeners. Be sure to visit hopeforhealingfoundation.org for free and affordable resources to help you overcome life's challenges. And explore healingbreathworkdetox.com, where you'll find transformative tools for deep inner healing and lasting change. Also, don't forget to check out my books, Crushed, A Journey Through Depression, and You Got This, an action plan to calm fear, anxiety, worry, and stress. Your journey to hope, healing, and happiness starts here.